Hare Krishna Vivek Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you Prabhuji for your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna Vrinda Gopika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you Mataji for giving your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumar Devidasi from Nala.
Hare Krishna Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you Mataji for giving your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I'm Kasturi Harini Devidasi from Malaysia. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Kasturi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you Mataji for giving your association. Hare Krishna. Is this the first time you are joining Mataji?
No, Mataji, I've been in this group for several times. Sometimes I'm unable to join because I got other classes and all that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Welcome, Mataji, to the call. Please give your association regularly. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Radha from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna Radha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Mataji, for your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranamam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Swapna from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna Swapna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Mataji, for your association. Hare Krishna. Is there anybody who would like to introduce themselves? Okay. Mataji, can you start your recording, please?
Started.
Okay. Hare Krishna, I welcome everyone to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have Iskris Keshavananda Prabhuji to enlighten us on topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Before I hand over the call to Prabhuji, I would like to hand over the call to Praveen Govind Prabhu to read the verse for us before Keshavananda Prabhu gives the class. Prabhu will read us a verse for us. Praveen Govind Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Dandavat Prana, please take over the call for reading verse, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. My humble obeisances to all the devotees on the call. So I'll read verse Canto 4, chapter 31, verse 18 and 19. Tenekam atmanam asesa dehinam kalam pradhanam purusham paresham swatejasa dhvasta guna pravaham atmaikam bhavena bhajadvam adha. Translation: because the Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes, he is the super soul of all individual living entities, and he exists as both the remote and immediate cause. Since he is aloof from the material emanations, he is free from their interactions and is Lord of material nature. You should therefore engage in his devotional service, thinking yourself qualitatively one with him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. According to the Vedic calculations, there are three causes of creation: time, the ingredient, and the creator. Combined, these are called Tritayatmaka, the three causes. Everything in this material world is created by these three causes. All of these causes are found in the personality of Godhead. As confirmed in Brahma Samhita, Sarva Karan Karanam, Narad Muni therefore advises the Prachetas to worship the direct cause, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated before, when the root of the tree is watered, all the parts are energized. According to the advice of Narad Muni, one should directly engage in devotional service. This will include all pious activity. Chaitanya Charitamrita states, Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita Haya. When one worships the Supreme Lord Krishna in devotional service, one automatically performs all the other pious activity. In this verse, the word Swa Tejasa Dhvasta Guna Pravaham are very significant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is never affected by the material qualities, although they all emanate from his spiritual energy. Those who are really conversant with this knowledge can utilize everything for the service of the Lord, because nothing in this world is unconnected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 19. Dayaya sarva bhuteshu santushtya yena kena va sarvendriyo pasantya cha tusyati asu janardhana. By showing mercy to all living entities, being satisfied somehow or other, and controlling the senses from sense enjoyment, one can very easily satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardhana. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. These are some of the ways in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be satisfied by the devotee. The first item mentioned is Dayaya Sarva Bhuteshu, showing mercy to all conditioned souls. The best way to show mercy is to spread Krishna consciousness. The entire world is suffering for want of this knowledge. People should know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original cause of everything. Knowing this, everyone should directly engage in devotional service. Those who are actually learned, advanced in spiritual understanding, should preach Krishna consciousness all over the world so that people may take to it and make their life successful. The word Sarva Bhuteshu is significant because it applies not only to human beings, but to all living entities appearing in the 8,400,000 species of life. The devotee can do good not only to humanity, but to all living entities as well. Everyone can benefit spiritually by chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. When the transcendental vibration of Krishna, Hare Krishna, is sounded, even the trees, animals, and insects benefit. Thus, when one chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra loudly, he actually shows mercy to all living entities. To spread the Krishna consciousness movement throughout the world, the devotee should be satisfied in all conditions. Narayana parasarve na kutaschana bhibyati swarga pavarga narkeshwa api tulyartha darshana. It does not matter to the pure devotee if he has to go to hell to preach. The Supreme Lord lives in the heart of a hog, although the Lord is in Vaikuntha. Even while preaching in hell, a pure devotee remains a pure devotee by his constant association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To attain this state, one has to control his senses. The senses are automatically controlled when one's mind is engaged in the service of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Keshavan Prabhu, are you there on the call? Hare Krishna. Keshavan Prabhu, are you there on the call?
He's not here yet, Prabhuji.
He's not there.
Prabhuji, I don't think he's here yet.
Okay, Mataji, Tiffany Mataji, you can go ahead.
Mataji,
Okay, Hare
you
Krishna.
can do the introduction.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. Today, I'd just like to introduce His Grace, Dr. Keshav Anand Prabhuji. Dr. Keshav Anand Prabhuji graduated in the year 1999 as a medical doctor from India. Prabhuji then took training under a British-born spiritual saint, His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj of the Hare Krishna movement, and chose to live the life of a monk. He took serious study of Sanskrit under various scholars and also spent many years studying science, both modern and Vedic. In the last 20 years, he has been conducting seminars and lectures in various colleges and universities in India, as well as abroad on various themes. He is an inspiring speaker, a prolific writer, and has published both books in both Hindi and in English. Some of his books in English are The Cheaters and the Cheated, Secrets of Yoga, Mighty Efforts, Crazy Ideas, and Science Fails to Explain Life. So Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Prabhuji, for joining us today. Welcome to the call.
Hare Krishna. Sorry. Oh, ये क्या हो गया? Oh. Yeah, Hare Krishna. You can hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Everybody can?
Yes,
Okay,
Prabhuji.
fine. I'll just start now. Chalo, jo bhi hai. I'll just add this, my Bluetooth, and then is my voice absolutely clear, or I need to do something else?
Clear, Prabhuji. It's good.
Okay then. So we are going to discuss this, I think, fourth canto, and was this chapter 30?
31.
Yeah, 31 chapter, text 18 and text 19.
We already read the verse, Prabhuji.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, fine. That's a good idea. Okay, so we're going to just do this. Just give me a minute. I just want to start my recorder. That's all. Okay. Yeah. So, fourth canto, chapter 18th and 19th verse. I'll just repeat the verse and then we can discuss this. तेनैक आत्मानम् अशेष देहिनां कालं प्रधानं पुरुषं परेशं स्वतेजसा ध्वस्त गुण प्रवाहम आत्मैक भावेन भजध्वम अत्था. And the next verse is 19. Dayaya sarvabhuteshu santushtaya yena kenava sarvindriyopashantaya cha tushyati ashu janardana. Okay, so these two verses are talking about that a devotee, basically what is happening is what Srila Prabhupada is saying, that a devotee can cross the material modes of nature simply by doing pure devotional service. That's what Srila Prabhupada and these two verses are alluding to. Now, in this verse, in 18th verse, something is told about Krishna. Some information is given about God. And why that information is given? To inform us that that simply by serving Krishna, we can get over modes of material nature. But the question is how? Why does service to Krishna take us beyond modes? And why does service to anybody else except Krishna doesn't actually bind us in the modes? Same service for Krishna, for others, for anybody else, but when it is done for Krishna, it liberates from modes or material nature. But when it's done for anybody else, it binds us. Now the obvious question is why? Because you see, these jnanis and yogis, and especially karmkandis, I mean to say all other philosophers and sects except Vaishnavas, they don't really accept this, that by serving God we can be free of material modes of material nature. They don't accept this theory. Mayavadis definitely will not accept this. They will say it's all bogus. According to Mayavadis and Jnanis, you need to read Vedas, you need to do tapasya, you need to, according to Karmkandis, you need to do some pious works to neutralize sinful activities. According to probably so according to Jains and Nyaya and Vaisheshika philosophers, you need to actually mortify your body, mortification. You need to do a lot of intense austerities to the point of torturing this body and soul, and that's how you will get over all these sinful reactions. But for us, for devotees, we say, well, it's simple, just serve Krishna. That's all. Offer him prasadam, chant his names. That's all, and you will cross modes of material nature. It's a joke for jnanis and yogis. And we see that you see this that happened with Gopal Chapal and Haridas Thakur. And so basically that was a debate. So this, I think that was a house of this, what do we say? I think Raghunath Das Goswami, yeah. Raghunath Das Goswami's father, what was his name? I'm just forgetting. Majumdar, some two people, Govardhan Majumdar and one more. Yeah, right. Hiranya Majumdar, Govardhan Majumdar, yeah. So there, this Haridas Thakur, actually, Haridas Thakur used to visit their house because, so not because Hiranya Majumdar, Govardhan Majumdar, they were devotees, but because their Kul Guru, Yadunandanacharya, he was a great devotee. And he was just living nearby their house because, I mean to say, even today, if you go to Raghunath Das Goswami's village, the name of that village is Saptagram. So it's very easy to go. Next time you go to Mayapur, so when you catch a train from Havra, in between there is a station, Saptagram. That's all. Just get down there, catch a rickshaw and go to Raghunath Das Goswami's house. It's a very small village, so you can imagine, Yadunandanacharya just living nearby in the vicinity of their house, and these people are landlords. And Raghunath, especially when he was a boy, he was associating with Yadunandanacharya, and that's how he came to know about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in that sense, one of the first devotees, first guru of Raghunath Das Goswami is Yadunandanacharya. Probably Shiksha Guru and Pratyaksha Guru. Because you see, ideally we think that Shiksha Guru of Raghunath Das Goswami is Sarup Damodar. And that's correct, because Mahaprabhu actually entrusted Raghunath Das Goswami to Sarup Damodar. But even before that, he was taking a lot of association of Yadunandanacharya and basically teachings from him. So they were also the Shiksha Guru. So Haridas Thakur used to come there to have his association. So there, I think they conducted some function, and Haridas Thakur was there. Yadunandanacharya invited Haridas Thakur. So Yadunandanacharya might have told Haridas Thakur, please come. There's a function. We'll have kirtans and all this, and you give some katha there. So he gave some katha, and there was this person Gopal Chapal. And he told, simply by taking names of Krishna, you can be liberated. And Gopal Chapal got really mad. He said, I object to this. This is nonsense. I don't agree. This person, Haridas Thakur, is a cheat. How can you get liberation simply by saying Hare Krishna? Now, of course, we know that you have to take holy names purely, Shuddha Nam. But you can get liberation even by Namabhas. That's a beauty there. So as far as liberation is concerned, Haridas Thakur said liberation you can get just by chanting Hare Krishna, and Gopal Chapal said, you fool. I mean to say, so there was a big argument, and then he said, you see, Gyanis, yogis are doing tapasya for so many millions or thousands or hundreds of years, whatever, in Kali Yuga, and then they are getting liberation. But here you are saying just by Hare Krishna people get liberation. I don't agree this. Haridas Thakur said, well, okay, fine. If this is not truth, then I will cut off my nose. But everybody was angry. They said, Gopal Chapal, you get lost. You have actually offended a great Paramahamsa Vaishnava and this and that. And then he went away. And finally, we know that Gopal Chapal had leprosy and his beautiful nose melted away because of offense. But anyway, the point I was coming to that was this Gyanis and Yogis will hardly believe that simply by serving Krishna or simply by doing devotion to Krishna, you can cross material modes of nature. Eternal bondage can be broken. That's a big thing. You see, it's yeah. So it's a very big thing. How do you really how do you understand this? That's the whole question there. Now, to answer that question, this verse is spoken. Text 18. Why does service to Krishna take us beyond modes of material nature? Although seemingly nothing is happening. I mean to say, so in the sense, apparently, what you're doing, you're simply saying Hare Krishna, and maybe making some food and offering, doing some arti. Seemingly these appear as mundane actions, nothing more than that, or even some simplistic actions. There's nothing great, at least apparently, it doesn't appear so great in comparison to yogis who are sitting in a cave, closing their eyes, not moving, in a samadhi trance, and they have become like simply like a bamboo, so thin hairs, and their back is stuck up on the walls of the cave because they have been meditating for probably 18 years. You can imagine, without eating and sleeping, that appears great, isn't it? And that's why, this Vivekanand, he went for a tour for South India, and he went to all these temples. Of course, if you go to South India, you can't miss going to Tirupati, Rameshwaram. These are big temples, Madurai. So he went to all these temples, and his conclusion was that these people are crazy people. These are nonsense people. They are hypocrites and corrupt. This devotion is nonsense. It's all eating and dancing, and that's what they are doing. Prasadam and dancing and some waving of lamps, that's all. How can they advance spiritually by doing this? He could gather this. His small intelligence could, his mundane eyes could see this, that's all. He couldn't really digest. Arya Samaj, Dayanand Saraswati, founder, he also heavily criticized Vaishnavas, and he said, no, these people, they can never cross illusion. I mean to say, it's a dream for them. What they are doing without reading Vedas, how can they cross illusion? So, but that is answered here. No, my dear Vivekanand and Dayanand Saraswati, you're dead wrong. You couldn't see the truth. It happens. And how does it happen? Okay, now let's go into the verse. The question is now, how does devotion take us beyond modes of material nature? How does devotion get us liberated? That's the question. How does serving God, in spite of binding us in actions, liberates us from actions, in spite of the fact that serving God is all full of actions? That's the question there. So what does this verse say? Tenaika atmanam ashesha dehinam. Atmanam ashesha dehinam. It is said, this verse is saying, okay, fine. So question, okay, this is a question. So first we need to understand who is God. Before answering this question, how does service to God liberate you? You have to understand who is God. Now, to discuss about God, there are so many things. And to say you can spend whole life discussing about God. Okay, but no. But in the context of this question, you need to know some essential points. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know some things. At least if you want to answer this question. The most important points. Let's put it like that. If you have to answer this question. Okay, so what are those points? The first point he's making is Tenaikam atmanam ashesha dehinam. He's saying ekam. Ekam. God is one. Now this word ekam has many meanings in Sanskrit, by the way. Ekam is the word in Sanskrit which has bahu artham. It's one, but it has many meanings. It's quite contradictory, but it's like that. Ekam means one. Ekam means also because whatever is one, that is, ekam also means the first. One. Number one. He's number one in the queue. That means he's the first. So what this verse is saying, Krishna is the first living entity, Adi Purusha. In the sense of Adi, original Purusha, Prabhupada says, isn't it? That's one of the meaning of Ekam. Ekam also means the only. Ekam. Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. Only. So what this verse is saying, that Krishna, or God, he is the only living, supreme living entity that has no comparison with him. There's nobody equal to, there's nobody above than him. He's the only, by only means the only unique supreme living entity who can do some things which living entities can never do. That's the meaning of Ekam. Ekam, he's unique. How he is unique? Living entities can do many things. If a living entity can, I mean to say, if they take yoga, you take to yoga and get siddhis, you can do miracles and wonders. But some things you can never do in spite of you becoming Maha yogi. Still you can't do. And what's that? There are, what's that? Divya Sargadi, Divya Sargadi Shrishtam, Brahma Rudradi Vimohanam, Bhakta Prarabdha Vidvamsam, Ityadi Achintya Shaktita. Rupa Goswami says in Nectar of Devotion, I think 1.2.149 something. That's the verse. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami says, and he says three things a living entity can never do. Even though a living entity shall become liberated, or Maha yogi, or Paramahamsa, or Siddha, still he can't do these three things. There's a difference. And that's what makes Supreme Ekam, unique. And what are the three things? Divya Sargadi Shrishtam. That is creation, maintenance, and destruction. No living entity can do. That's the first difference between God and us. If somebody asks you what's the difference between God and us, these three things you have to tell. The first thing is Divya Sargadi Shrishtam. Nobody can create, destroy, and maintain this material world. It's impossible. Even Vishwamitra could not do. You see, Vishwamitra wanted to become this Brahma Rishi. And this person, Trishanku, he approached Vishwamitra and he said, I want to go to heaven with this body. And Vishwamitra said, okay, I will make you go. And by his powers, he made Trishanku ascend to the heaven. And Indra said, what nonsense, you can't come to heaven with this material body. You have to take heavenly body. I mean to say, after death, by pious credits you go. You can't just go by derooting that process of law of karma, and by powers you come and to live here. That's nonsense. So Indra just kicked him down. He just kicked him, really, he kicked him. He kicked him on his head and he was just falling down. And Vishwamitra, he shouted, Vishwamitra, help me. And Vishwamitra saw him, my God, he's falling down. By his powers, he again pushed him up. And Indra saw he's coming up, he just kicked him. And then he's going up and down, up and down, up. He got mad. He said, I'll die. Like that. What are you doing, Vishwamitra? Vishwamitra said, okay, don't worry. I'll make a whole planet, a whole universe for you. Don't worry about that. A planet, probably. He made a whole planet for Trishanku. And it's still there, by the way, in south direction. So it is said, in the southern direction, there is a planet belonging to Trishanku. We don't know in modern astronomy what that corresponds to. Probably in Vedic astronomy, if we do research, we'll be able to tell which planet that corresponds to in the sky. But anyway, it's there. But what happened was Vishwamitra made that planet, but then that planet started falling down on the earth. And they were very afraid, and they said, Vishwamitra, what the hell, everybody will die. So Vishwamitra said, I can't do anything, it's out of my control. And then he prayed to Vishnu. Vishnu came and Vishnu said, Vishwamitra, okay, fine, this time I will help you. I'll stop this planet right in the middle of heaven and the earth, in the sky. Trishanku can live there. But next time you don't do what I'm supposed to do. Don't just meddle in my work. You do your work. This is your nonsense, useless Brahmrishi. You got so egoistic. This is my department. Why do you want to come in my department? So he couldn't handle. You see, that the point I'm bringing, that I mean, he couldn't handle even one planet what he made. So creating the entire material universe and maintaining it and destroying it, that's the function of God. Of course, he does that through Lord Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. Krishna does that, but he's doing. That's the idea. So that's the meaning of Ekam. So that is one unique thing. Ekam means one unique thing belonging to God. And the next point is what is unique in God is Brahmarudradi Vimohanam. Even Brahma and Lord Shiva can be deluded by the Maya energy of God. Nobody can delude Brahma and Lord Shiva, no matter how much great Yogi and Siddha and Paramahamsa and Mukta Nam Api Siddha Nam, Mukta, no matter how much you are transcendentalist, but you can't bewilder Lord Shiva and Brahma, isn't it? You can't, I mean to say, you will not even dare to do that. But Vishnu can. Krishna can. Krishna bewildered Brahma. You know all the pastimes of this. Of this. You know that, isn't it? Of these cowherd boys and these cows and stealing by Brahma, and he got bewildered. Brahm Vimohan Leela. And then Lord Shiva, he also deluded by Mohini Avatar. It was interesting. Today we were discussing about that. Actually, one boy, one brahmachari, he asked me today, well, Lord Shiva was bewildered by Mohini Avatar, but Lord Shiva, he was attracted to Mohini, and Mohini is God. So what's so bad? That was a question. It was a good question, isn't it? I mean to say, if you say, okay, Brahma was attracted towards Mohini, but then that's devotion, isn't it? You get attracted towards God. What's so wrong in that? But no, Bhagavatam says one thing very important. Vyasadeva had to include that point, which is very embarrassing for Lord Shiva. But that proves the point of this pastime. The point is that Vishnu, he deluded, actually he put Lord Shiva into Maya. It was not a spiritual attraction, it was a mundane attraction. And that's why we say he got bewildered. He actually got bewildered by the deluding energy of God. It was not something spiritual. And to prove that, Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami or Vyasadeva, he included the point that when Lord Shiva was running after Mohini, his semen dropped. So that is very important point. In fact, that point of semen, that's the most important point in this pastime. You might not have thought this, but that's the point. Why? You know why? Because if that was a spiritual attraction, then there should be no semen falling down. It's not that Lord Shiva is in Samadhi and his semen is falling down always because of a spiritual attraction. That doesn't happen in spiritual attraction. So it's something mundane going on there. Although it might be something mixed, but definitely there is a mundane component. Otherwise, why semen is falling down? There's a mundane emotion happening there. And that's so Mohini told Lord Shiva that, see, you will be deluded by my material energy. And Lord Shiva was deluded. And the proof was his semen falling down. So his attraction was not under spiritual energy. Or let's say it was something mixed. It was not pure spiritual attraction. So that's Brahma. You see, Lord Vishnu by his Maya, God can do this. Nobody else can do this. That's another difference. And third difference between God and us, living entities, is is Bhaktanam Prarabdha Vidhvamsham. That Bhaktanam is devotees. He can destroy the prarabdha of his devotees. By prarabdha means sinful reactions, which he is suffering now. It's not the sinful reactions of past lives or something past, or those sinful reactions which are not yet fructified. Sinful reactions which he is suffering, which is already been fructified, prarabdha. He can destroy that. There is no process, jnana, yoga, even jnanis and yogis, they agree to this point that we can destroy all karmas, but prarabdha karmas, the karmas which you are suffering, that cannot be destroyed. That you have to suffer. No amount of siddhis, no amount of yoga, no amount of their paramahamsa and their liberation and whatever, their so-called liberation, it can destroy prarabdha karma. You have to actually undergo and suffer your prarabdha karmas, the karmas which you are suffering now. You have to taste it. There's no other way. But God can do that. Kubja by prarabdha. What was Kubja's prarabdha karma? She was Kubja. Kubja means she was three-bended. She was bended in three places. Kubja. So what do we say in English? Kubja. What do we say? Hunchback woman. Yeah. She was a hunchback woman. Prabhupada said. Her spine was bent. So she was walking like old people, they are bent and they walk with a stick like that. She was from the birth. She was like that. There was a deformity in her spine. So, but Krishna came to Mathura, and Kubja saw Krishna Balram. Krishna Balram saw Kubja, and Krishna Balram asked Kubja, "Where are you going?" She said, "I am servant of Kamsa. I am taking these oils and these nice fragrant powders and chandan, especially chandan for Kamsa." So she was a prostitute. She was not a prostitute. She was the head of a brothel. That's interesting, isn't it? In Mathura, there is a brothel. There was a brothel. Yeah. She was a head mistress of a brothel. Quite interesting, isn't it? And Krishna asked her. I mean, to say people might have been quite surprised when they would see when Krishna Balaram was walking on the streets of Mathura. Everybody was seeing from their houses, from windows, because they were very attractive boys and new. I mean, to say they never visited Mathura. In previous days, now you don't experience this. If any tourist, as a tourist, if you travel anywhere, who cares for you? But in previous days, it was a big thing if any tourist come, because nobody used to come, because traveling was very infrequent because of lack of fast transportation. So people used to spend their whole life, almost their entire life, in one village. They didn't have to go anywhere. Prabhupada says that in his books, and that was good. But so Krishna Balram, they went to Mathura for the first time, and people were seeing, my God, who are these boys? And they knew about Krishna Balram first of all. So many of them were attracted, and moreover, who didn't know, they were attracted to the beauty, unprecedented beauty of Krishna and Balram, and their activities. They were frolicking, they were laughing, and when they were walking on the streets of Mathura, they were doing a big drama out there, isn't it? And so everybody was seeing. And then suddenly Krishna Balaram stopped and they asked Kubja, these chandan, can you give me this chandan, beautiful lady? And people were saying, wow, what is this? This Krishna Balaram, they're talking to prostitute. They couldn't believe their ears. Who talks to a prostitute? And even now, even now people hesitate to talk to prostitutes. It's quite shameful. What is this? Talking to prostitute. So you can imagine 5,000 years back. You can't talk to a prostitute. You can't even see. People didn't even feel good to see them. If they saw a prostitute, they would just, say Vishnu, Vishnu, or go and take a bath, whatever. 5,000 years back. That was a strict Vedic society. So he's saying to Kubja, can you give me this Chandan? So he decided to give some mercy to Kubja, and he wanted to show through Kubja, he wanted to prove a point. That's the point. Through Kubja, he wanted to prove 2 points: that his mercy is not limited to high class people and only to pious living beings. His mercy is available even to the most fallen section of society, a prostitute. At his door, everybody is invited. There is no distinction to anybody getting that mercy. Anybody who does service to him, he will be awarded mercy. Whether it's a Brahman, whether it's a prostitute, whether it's a Brahmana's wives, uneducated, he will extend his mercy. If that living entity will do some service. You see the point now, the point of service is coming. Slowly it will come. So that's so Kubja gave some chandan, and then what Krishna said, Krishna did, he just put his 2 fingers on his chin and his left foot on the left foot of Kubja. He put that and he just raised it, and she becomes straight. Everything gone. Her prarabdha is destroyed. Her karmas which she was suffering in this life, it's finished. She became a very beautiful lady. Very beautiful. People could hardly believe their eyes. Such a beautiful woman. And that's only God can do. So these are the 3 unique things. That's the ekam in this word. Ekam, the meaning of ekam here. That's why he's saying Tvatena ekam. God is unique. The whole point to prove is he's unique. No living entity is like him. So that is why when you do service to any other living entity and service to him, there is a difference because he's unique. He can do what and nobody else can do. That is why service to any other living entity doesn't make you cross modes of material nature or doesn't avoid your liberation, permanent liberation. But service to Krishna can take you beyond modes of nature, can give you liberation, and even much beyond that, it can give you love of God. Because he's unique, he can do those things which nobody else can do. That's one of the reasons which is in this ekam. And then he says, okay, then so then the point is, oh, fine, he's unique, that's okay. So the question here is, if he's unique, then somebody can ask, okay, God is unique and there's no living entity like God. So then if he's so unique, then he would definitely not be mingling with living entities, isn't it? A king is very high and so unique, and one and only one king, and he doesn't always daily goes to people's house and chit chat with them and speak with them, and he doesn't mix with common man, isn't it? A king, he doesn't mix because he's unique. So somebody can say, okay, God is so unique, so definitely he might not be mixing with living entities, and he has he would not stay with living entities, isn't it? He would be in his kingdom, up there, and living beings are here, and he's controlling from there. That we can understand. So that's what is happening. Christianity is like that, isn't it? God is up and away in the heaven on the clouds with a big beard, and he's looking down, and the living entities, they are rotting in this material world, and they're suffering, and they're cursing God. Why did you make evil if you're so merciful? And God is saying, no, actually I'm merciful, you know, I'm not evil. And each of them is trying to convince each other. No, that's Christianity, by the way. Anyway, I'm joking. Christianity is There is a lot of good essence in Christianity also. I'm joking, that's all. But the whole point, the theological implications of the theological understanding of God in Christianity, in Islam, in Judaism is that God is up there in the heaven, in the Noor, in Jannat, Allah, and here we are living beings, and He's controlling from there. That much. But because He's unique, that's the whole idea. Why He's up there and why He's not down here? Because He's unique, you fool. That's what they will say. He's very unique. He's so great, so great, so great. He will not come here in this stinking drain. He controls from there. That's enough. He's so merciful. At least He's controlling and He's managing us. That's a very big thing. And that's all. Just shut up. That's Christianity, Islam. But no, we don't say like that. Bhagavad doesn't say. Bhagavatam says, Ekam, He's unique. But at the same time, Atmanam Ashesha Dehinam. He Ashesha, unlimited. Dehinam, living entities. Atmanam, super soul. He is a super soul of unlimited living entities. You can imagine. He stays with us in our heart. He's staying in our heart. My heart is here. Yeah. In this, it's looking reverse. I thought, my God, my heart is on the left. What happened to me? Anyway, here, yeah, my heart is here. So, my heart, yeah, my heart, yeah. So I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Although I feel I'm everywhere, but actually my soul is here. But my soul means I am here. And with me, there's super soul. That's how it goes. Soul and super soul. So super soul is there, accompanying living entity since eternity into different forms which is forced to take by laws of karmas. Different species is traveling, and super soul is traveling with him, just like a friend. Upadrishtanumantasya suhirdam sarvabhutanam hirdadesha arjuna tisthati. There are so many verses in Gita. He's there like a friend, and he's guiding living entity, inspiring him and helping him to fulfill his desires and acting. That is Krishna. He's so unique, but at the same time, he doesn't stay in this spiritual kingdom aloof from us. In spite of being so unique, he descends as super soul and stays with us as a friend and helps us at every moment. This body we are moving, we are not moving by our own energy. It's energy given by super soul. That's how we are able to move our hands and this. That's why when you get paralysis, even if you want to move your hand, you will not be able to move your hand. There's something wrong in your brain. And what's so wrong in the brain? The idea is a super soul is not giving you energy to actually move your hand. So you can't move. So we are dependent on God for each and every action. And that's what super soul is. So you see the point there. In spite of being unique, he's so friendly, and he comes down and stays with living entities and actually mixes with them, and he is there with all of us. So that's the idea there. Tena ekam atmanam ashesha dehinam. So that's what makes God unique. His uniqueness is not that he's staying in spiritual world and nobody is equal to him. That's not that doesn't make anybody unique. That makes a person tyrant. He's there in the spiritual world. He doesn't mix with anybody, and he doesn't care. He cares, but he doesn't mix with anybody. So that makes a person not just tyrant, but it actually makes a person not so humble in the sense. So, but God, in spite of being so unique, he comes and stays with living entities in the heart as super soul. This is what makes him unique. If it is said in scriptures, if a great person, if a very great person, he associates with people lower than him, that makes him unique, because that exhibits his compassion, his extreme compassion. It is said in scriptures, if a person is having all great qualities but is devoid of compassion, all his great qualities are nullified, because then he's egoistic. That's all. Isn't it? If a great person doesn't mix with anybody, people will say, he's great, he's nice, he's having sober, but he's egoistic and nobody likes him. So that's what it says. Ekam atmanam ashesha dehinam. That's God. And then two other important points about God they are telling. Kalam pradhanam, first, purusham paresham. Now he controls everybody. That's very important to understand when we want to answer this question. How does service to him liberates us? How does serving him liberates us? How does service to any other living entity doesn't liberate us? What's so unique in him? Now he controls everybody. He's controlling, he's a controller. If he's a controller, then he can liberate us. He bound us and now he can liberate us. It is up to him. That's the whole point there. How does serving him liberates us? Because it is his department. You can't go to a medical department and get your loans paid off. You can't do that, because if you want to get your loans paid off, then you have to go to a finance department, not medical department. So that's the department of him, and that's what Krishna says in Gita. Devi Aishu Gunamai Mama Maya Duratya Maya Meva Prapadyante Maya Metam Taranti. So I actually liberate people because that's my department. Maya is under me. So but he controls everybody. How does he control everybody? This is very interesting. It is at Kalam Pradhanam. By two ways he controls us, everybody. Kalam Pradhanam. Kalam Pradhanam means Kala means time. Pradhanam means the most important factor. Pradhan. Pradhan here means most important factor. Prabhupada translates as material cause. This is the material cause. The cause in this material world of controlling people, Krishna controls in form of time. Kalam Pradhanam. This is very interesting information in Bhagavatam as far as science goes, because science says nothing is in control, but if you see Bhagavatam is saying time is in control. Now this is a very good information as far as science goes, because everything is controlled by time. Because if time stops, everything stops. Movement stops, forces stops, everything stops. So then where is science? What do you do with this universe? So time is controlling. If time is moving slow, things are moving slow. If time is moving fast, things are moving fast. You see how time is controlling things? In fact, so this is just by the way footnotes. If you know about something about black holes, there's a theory of black holes. You don't need to know everything. I'm just telling you. Black holes, there's something in the sky. Stephen Hawking said in 2000, he said there are black holes, even before that. And the point of black holes was, so black holes are some holes in universe, and they appear black. But the point here I'm trying to bring is on the circumference of black hole. Circumference. Scientists were saying that the time stops. Just on the circumference of black hole, time stops. Stephen Hawking said, but in 2012, Stephen Hawking said, well, I want to change my idea. Time doesn't stop on the circumference of black holes, because if time stops, then nothing should happen. But according to other scientists and even Stephen Hawking, on the circumference of black hole, there is much action going on. There are radiations and there are virtual particles and this and that and that. He says if time stops, then all other theories crashes. So time doesn't stop. So that's, you see the point there. The point I'm bringing is that scientists have to accept that time is under control. You see, even in biology, one cell, sperm and ovum mix, they mix, and there is genes in the cell, and some cells become hands, some cells becomes legs, some cell becomes heart at particular time on months. The first month, hands, small hands are made. Second month, some legs are made. 6th month, heart is made and it starts beating. So I'm just taking some random numbers here. But then who decides at what time what organ should be made? Time decides, isn't it? So time is under control. That is Kalam Pradhanam. Krishna in form of time, he controls everything. And Purusham Paresham. And Krishna in form of, Prabhupada says, in his direct form, direct from spiritual word and super soul, he controls directly from there. In the form of time, he controls in the material world, and also he controls directly in form of super soul in the heart. Both ways he's controlling. Material cause, spiritual cause. Immediate cause, a secondary cause, primary cause. Time is a secondary cause. Primary cause is God. So he is under full control. That's how he controls this whole universe. And then the point made here is Swa Tejasa Dhvasta Guna Pravaham. That's the point. Swa Tejasa. By his Tej. Tej means spiritual energy. There are two words in Ayurveda, Tej and Oj. Ojas and Tejas in a body. So Tejas is the heat and the energy in our body. And Ojas is, let's say, how do we put it? Ojas is, how do I say? I don't know. It's a very technical word. But anyway, Tej and Oj. Tej and Oj. Tej in Sanskrit, it's a very technical word. When it is said Swa Tejasa, it is said God by his own energy. Teja means energy. By his effulgence, Tej means effulgence. The effulgence of sun is the energy of sun. Am I right? So by his energy, spiritual energy, Dhvasta Guna Prabhaham, he can destroy all the karmas, right up to Prarabdha karmas. He can destroy everything. That's the point they are trying to make. How he can destroy? I just told. The verse is telling. Why? Because he's unique and he's in control. That's why he's able to destroy all karmas, and he's able to liberate you and take you beyond modes without any extraneous effort. And he can do that. And that is why Atmaika Bhavena Bhasadvamadaha, by serving him, by simple actions of service, simply by offering, chanting, simply by offering by hand, simply by moving your lips, you can get liberated. It's a nightmare for Gyanis and Yogis. If you tell any Gyani and Yogi, you can simply get liberated just by doing some offering, ringing a bell in the temple and chanting, they will never believe this. Most of you might not have met a Gyani and Yogi, real Gyani and Yogi, but they will never believe this. They will just laugh at you. They will say, you're a kid. But that's the whole point. Here in the process of bhakti, we are not depending on our effort. We are depending on the mercy of God. That's the difference there. Why Gyanis and Yogis cannot accept, why Gopal Chapal could not accept the proposal of Haridas Thakur that once chanting can liberate you? Because the whole process of Jnana and Yoga depends on personal effort. And when it comes to personal effort to get liberated, then that seems a very big task. It's almost like an ant trying to reach to the top of Mount Everest. And it's impossible, but so you need some extraordinary efforts and blah, blah, blah. But here in bhakti process is Atmaika Bhavena. Bhakti process is everything about bhava. Everything about bhava, emotions, and mercy. That's bhakti process. So in bhakti process, Ant doesn't have to climb Mount Everest. Ant has to just cry out, and then God will come and take the ant and take it in his hand and put it on the top of the Mount Everest. That's all. That's how it goes. So then that is why in bhakti process, simple actions and simple feelings can actually liberate you. But if they're directed atmaika bhavena, directed only towards God, that's a trick there. That's a trick. Mercy of God can lift you up, but you have to completely focus on that. That's all. And then it can happen. Then it will happen. Atmaika bhavena bhajadvamadha. And that's why it is recommending, this verse is recommending that therefore you should engage in his devotional service. And that is what will help you to get liberated. Otherwise, there's no other route to get liberation or going beyond modes. People who think, vimukta manenas, jnanis and yogis, they think they have got liberated, but actually they have not. They just think. But devotees can get real liberation and can go even beyond liberation. They can love of God. So that is why here Sukadeva Goswami is recommending just do devotional service. Atmaik eka bhavena, one pointed attention. Don't divert your attention on jnana and yoga and other processes, because that will not help you. Those processes are different. Our process is different. And don't try to mix both of them. You see, some devotees, they also like to do meditation, or maybe like Gyanis and Tapasvis, they like to do tapasya, or maybe read Vedas, mix with that. But that's not required on this path. The only thing required is bhavena, bhava. That is the only thing required here. All Vaishnavacharyas, Vallabhacharya, Gaudiya Vaishnava, Madhva, Ramanuja, everybody is saying in bhakti, our vehicle, the vehicle of bhakti is not Vedas, is not tapa, is not dana, it is bhava. We are on the ship named bhava. That's the ship you have to board. Don't board on the wrong ship, otherwise you'll end up somewhere else, or that ship will crash in the ocean. It's not a safe boat. So that's what it's saying. Atmaika bhavena. This bhavena word comes in Bhagavatam right in the beginning. Bhuvi bhavuka. What's that verse? Bhuvi bhavuka. Anyway, so that in the first three verses, Pibatam Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. How is that? Yeah, Muhoraho Rasika. Yeah. Muhoraho Rasika Bhuvi bhavuka. Muhoraho Rasika Bhuvi bhavuka. So what is the meaning of bhavuk? Yeah, Pibatam Bhagavatam. That bhavuk word, if you want to literally translate it as sentimental, bhavuk. Well, that's not the point there. The whole point is a connection to God is through sentiments, not sentimental. You don't have to become mental. You have to have some sentiments, real, genuine sentiments. What is genuine sentiment? A sentiment based on service of God. And what is emotions, mundane emotions? A sentiment. What is sentimental? Some sentiments based on your mind, conjured by your mind. By this bhavuka, this sentiment based on service of God, and that's what he's saying. Bhajadum adha, and the word is used adha. Worship him directly. Worship him directly. Don't, adha means directly, actually. Anvadha means indirectly. But he says adha. Worship him directly. Directly means what? What worship him directly means what? He says, don't divert your mind on any other process, on any other form of God even. Worship directly the original form of God, Krishna. That's all. Ete chamsa kalpara punsa krishnastu bhagwan swayam. That's all. Just gayanti, rinanti, shinvanti, sing about him, think about him, talk about him. That's a process. It's actually simple. But that's the whole point. Prabhupada says we are complex. That's the whole point there. And that's what Sukadeva Goswami is saying. And that's the whole point. How this simple process is giving such a great result. That's the whole point there of this verse. And that is very important question, by the way, very philosophical question. Ramanuja raises this question, Vallabh raises this question, how such a simple process is giving you such a great result? That's a big question. And the answer to this is due to the presence of God in this process, due to the participation of God in this process. It's not we alone are trying to do something. That's the whole point here. Due to actually, so Ramanujacharya makes the point, what makes bhakti so high than any other process? Because God is present in the process as a means. That's the whole idea there. The idea is the service which you are doing, you are coming in contact with God. Deities, God. Holy name, God. Devotees, they are also manifestations of God. They are Swarup of God. We understand Tulsi Maharani, God. Srimad Bhagavatam, God. So Vrindavan, God. So what do you do with that? So what makes this process very important and very unique that can give such a great result? God himself. He's present in the process. And in any of the process, Jnana and Yoga and Karma Kanda and all these process, God is not there. He comes in the end, if at all he comes. But as a means, he's not there. That is the point which Ramanuja makes. Here, sadhan is God and sadhya is God. A means is God and the goal is God. We are trying to approach God through the help of God. And that's what Vallabh also makes a point. That's the same point he makes. We also have this point. And that's the answer to this question. Why service to God gets us liberated? Because when we do service to God, we come in contact with him. He's present in the service. And that's what Bhagavad Gita says. What's that verse? Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavi, Brahmagnau, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, Brahma karma samadhina. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am everything. I am service. The service you are doing, that I am that. The offering which you are making in service, I am that. To the person you are offering, that of course I am. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, I am. Brahma karma samadhina, and the bliss you are getting in devotion, that is also I. That also is I am. You see, beautiful verse. And that's why this process can liberate us without much extraneous effort in comparison to yogis and jnanis and karmakandis, ritualistic people like that. So anyway, I'll just end up here. See, next verse, 19th verse, I can't do. you know, time is up. I could have spoken much on this also, but I think that's enough. Yeah, I'll just stop here. Anybody wants to ask any question, you can go ahead and ask. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the beautiful class. Somebody has raised their hand.
Yeah. So
Hare
they have
Krishna.
to...
Please unmute yourself and talk. You can ask the question. Hare Krishna, devotees, is there anybody having any question? Please go ahead and ask.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Keshavan Prabhu. Dhanavad Pranam Prabhu.
Suresh.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I have one question. Yeah, very nice point, Prabhu. One point is due to presence of God in the process as a means, right? So that's why it's very, very tagline, Prabhu, for today. So,
okay.
So one question is here, why does the Lord doesn't say follow the Bhakti Yoga process, Prabhu? Otherwise, this is very indirectly saying, so many aspects.
Why does God
doesn't say follow the Bhakti Yoga process? He's indirectly saying so many things here. And other question is, the last word directly, right? So we generally, the other thing is we don't directly approach the Lord, right? We approach through his devotees. And
No, but your question was, why doesn't he say directly that do devotion? But he's saying directly, isn't it? Bhajadvam adha. So
Yeah.
then,
so the word bhakti didn't come, Prabhu, right here.
no, bhakti is no, that word bhajadvam.
Okay.
Bhajadvam is bhakti only. And for directly doing bhakti. The question you're asking, the answer is here. He's saying, don't divert your attention to any other process, just directly do bhakti, that's all. That's the whole point of this verse. You see the point there?
Yes, Prabhu, yes. Bhajadvam, the word is little bit, means, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
It is
use that
bhajadvam.
word direct many times, right? Like upasana and bhajati, we see those often.
Yeah, here it's a different word. The word is bhajadvam.
Mhm.
So the word here is bhaja plus dhvam. Actually, it's not dhvam, it is bhajadvam. Bhajadhva. Bhajadhva means you all. It's not just engage one senses, engage all your senses. That's the whole. If you go in Sanskrit, you will find bhajadhvam. Dhva he is adding to indicate engage all senses or sankirtan, congregational. So if you really go into this word, what this word is indicating is sankirtanam, not just kirtan. So it's bringing the point of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Do devotion in combined form together. That is why it's funny word bhajadhvam. And directly means chant Hare Krishna. You don't need to do anything. So in bhajadhvam adha, you can see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement here. That's the whole idea there. If we know Sanskrit, we can see Lord, the verse is recommending take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the whole idea. You see, so in Bhagavatam there is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sankirtan movement. And Atma Bhavena through Bhava. This is typical of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Ras, Bhav, mellows, and direct through holy names. Actually, this word adha also comes in that Pumsam Arpita Vishnu. Was that verse? I just forgot. That is different. After Shravan Kirtan. Iti Pumsam Arpita Vishnu. Vishnu Chet Navalakshana. And then, so in that verse, adha comes. Directly, take to Shravan Kirtan directly. You don't have to do anything else. Just take it directly. But do it with bhava. Atma bhavena. That's the secret there. Prem Ram Sankirtam. That's what you see that Chaitanya Charitamrita uses this verse. Prem Nam Sankirtanam. This full sense. Mahaprabhu said Sankirtanam, but Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami then qualifies that. Okay, if you don't understand what do you mean by Sankirtanam, if you think Sankirtanam is just coming together and playing some kind of instruments and spending whole night, no, that's not I'm talking. I'm saying Prem Nam Sankirtanam. And here in this line, Atmayika Bhavena Bhajadvam Adha, same what Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami is saying. Bhajadvam means Sankirtanam, Adha means Nam directly, and Atmayika Bhavena means Prem. So this is movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which these people, Sukadeva Goswami is recommending 5,000 years back. Well, there was no Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that time. But it's a forecast, it's a prediction there. So if you know Sanskrit, you can actually go much deeper. Just like Mahaprabhu, he gave 90 meanings of that one verse. So then you can really relish into that. You can really open the window and go into that verse like that. Is it clear?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes. Yes,
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in the processes that we follow also, there seems to be components of yoga and jnana and everything. And especially with when we do japa, it feels more like, controlling the mind and whatnot. It feels like, the yogic process, and it seems extremely difficult to,
Yeah, you're right. It feels like that, and that's the wrong thing we are doing. That's why result is not coming. You see, that's a very good question. The question you have raised is not a question in itself. It is an anartha we have to overcome. That is the point there. Now, for most of us, the process feel like a yogic or a jnani process because we are taking a lot of knowledge, and yogic because we are trying to concentrate on holy names. So it feels it is what's happening, but that's the thing we have to overcome. So when we chant only with bhava, and so here bhava for us it means seva bhav, in service attitude, sevon mukhahi jevadau, for the pleasure of Krishna. When we read for the pleasure of Krishna, then the result will come. Otherwise, it will not come. Otherwise, although we are following yogic process, although we are following the process of bhakti, but actually we are not on pure devotional standards. It is mixed with yoga and jnana. So what we are doing now is, so we are doing karma mishra bhakti and yoga mishra bhakti. It's all mixed up with the feelings. The process is devotion, but the feeling is yogic. That's what you're saying, isn't it? The feeling is yogic. The feeling is like a jnani. The feeling is not like a devotee, although the process is of devotion. But when the feeling also is of a devotee, that, okay, here I'm chanting to serve God and not just to concentrate on the holy names. Concentration of holy names, that's required in the very beginning. When we are complete nonsense and a mad person, we can't even hear holy names. What will happen of serving, by chanting? So Prabhupada said, okay, at least concentrate. But then Prabhupada said concentrate. But then how do we achieve concentration? Through service attitude. That's the whole idea. Not just forcing us in the holy name. That will never happen. Because one of the name of Krishna is Adhokshach. He will push you back if you try to force yourself. Then we become yogi from inside. Outside we are devotee. From outside we are devotee. From inside we are yogi. And from all sides we are bhogi. How about that? That's what is my life. Okay, let's put it like that. We are like outside devotee. So how do we say devotee? Bhakt, bhakt, there's no rhyme there. Outside we are, anyway, I don't know. Outside we are bhakta, inside we are yogi, and from all sides we are bhogi. Like that. That is us, all of us. But when from outside we become bhakta, from inside we become bhakta, and from all sides we become bhakta, and we are doing everything for service of God and just for His pleasure, and not just to concentrate or to understand and just rationally understand everything, then there is a problem then. So you see, so that is anartha we have to overcome sooner or later. Otherwise, we'll never get to love of God. It's not possible. Is it okay? Is it fine?
No, I think it was perfect, Prabhuji. I think, often sometimes we experience frustration in the process of bhakti, and maybe that because, like you said, it's because of those inclinations only. It's causing.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I think that connection really helps me. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Today's session was slightly insightful. It was really helpful. So I have few questions, few queries. Are there any pastimes of Krishna where Krishna stopped time and Krishna could control time and do his leela?
Yes, there are pastimes. I mean, at least there is one very important pastime of actually Jayadratha in Mahabharata, where Krishna ordered sun to actually sun had set down. Arjuna had taken a vow that he will kill Jayadratha before sun sets, but he couldn't. and then Krishna orders sun to go back and rise again. And the
Okay.
Jayadratha, actually Jayadratha, oh Hare Krishna. ये क्या हो गया? हाँ, वो एक message. So Jayadratha, he sun had set, and Jayadratha and this Duryodhan, so actually Jayadratha was actually running away from Arjun. So sun set, and then Jayadratha saw sun has set, and Arjuna, now his vow is finished, and now he has to kill himself. So he came in front of Arjuna's chariot. He was laughing, "Hey Arjuna, you see, now you have to die," and this. And Krishna says, "Okay, wait a minute." And he told sun, and again sun rose, and he was, "My God, what's happening?" And Krishna said, "Arjun, shoot this arrow," and finished. He can control time. He can do anything. And in fact, it said when he was speaking Gita, he stopped time. Some acharyas comment on that.
But
Time stopped.
It happened in 45 minutes, right? But some say it happened.
No.
in few
So that's what that some commentators says 45 minutes. Some commentators says time stopped.
Okay.
Or you can think like that. Time stopped after 45 minutes. He
For
was
us,
speaking
it is 45 minutes, and for like relatively.
yeah,
it could be
relate,
few seconds.
but actually time stopped. Yeah, time stopped.
Okay.
Yeah, like that.
And Prabhuji, like you seem to stay in a mud building. So I'm an architect. I'm interested in ecological construction, and I have also designed few buildings. So it would be helpful, like if you need any service regarding ecological construction, making mud buildings.
Okay. So good. So you please send me
I
a
was
mail.
also
You know,
checking about your Badrik Ashram project. So it was
okay,
really
fine.
nice.
So that's very nice. Actually, so what's your name?
I'm Vivek. Sai Vivek.
Okay, Vivek. So where do you live, by the way, in India?
Yes, sorry. I stay in Hyderabad, but I
Okay,
travel.
fine. So you do one thing. So you just drop a mail to me, and my mail ID is this Zoom ID Keshavanand108.
Okay, Prabhu. @gmail.com.
Yeah. This same Zoom ID.
Okay, sure, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So please send me a mail, and that will be very nice, very helpful. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so anybody else there?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I just have a question. If you, that last sentence of the verse where it says you should therefore engage in his devotional service, thinking yourself qualitatively one with him, do you mind just speaking a little bit about that? I know it's
Yeah.
getting late, but
No, it's not getting, that's fine. Yeah, actually, that's a very important question, by the way. Atmaika bhavena. So, although this seems as a Mayavad interpretation, qualitatively one. I mean, see, Mayavadis will like to comment like this. Eka bhavena means when you become one with God in emotion, something like this they will do. But here, Eka bhavena, as far as Vaishnav are concerned, if you go in Sanskrit, we don't translate Eka as becoming one, although Prabhupada says qualitatively one. Prabhupada also actually, so as a Vaishnava, we have to interpret this word Eka. We can't take it literally. You see the point there? So we also have to do some interpretations there. But of course, those interpretations, we justify it by other verses of Bhagavatam, because otherwise somebody can say it's your speculation, qualitatively. But from the verse doesn't mention the word qualitative, just mentions one. So as far as literal understanding of this Atmaika Bhavena, it actually supports Mayavad, literal as it is. But then we say no, but then it would contradict entire Bhagavatam, because in Bhagavatam there are many verses which says you cannot become one with God. And in fact, the very verse, this very verse is trying to prove that God is unique and we are different, isn't it? The whole lecture was that. So looking at this verse, when we are saying you cannot become God, God and living entities are intrinsically different, no matter how much great living entity can become. After discussing that, when he says Eka Bhavena, then you can't take Eka as being God, isn't it? So it directly contradicts what he's saying previously. So then you have to interpret. So what would be that interpretation? That's the next question. So, okay. So then according to Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, we will interpret qualitatively oneness, not quantitatively. If suppose Madhvacharya would interpret, he would interpret Eka Bhavena not in our style, but he would say Eka Bhavena means that you become one with the divine will of Lord, because they don't accept, it's Advaita philosophy. And if you so if Sri Sampradaya would translate this verse Eka Bhavena, Ramanuja would say Eka Bhavena means that that you become Eka, again he would take as focus. Your bhava should become focused and not just branch off in different directions. He would interpret like that. And if you take Vallabhacharya would probably take Eka Bhavena as according to Vallabh system, Eka, he would take that your bhava should become one with the bhava of the God. So in other words, you should think that you're only existing for God. Eka, in the sense of only. You're only existing for his pleasure, for his pastimes. So you see, different Vaishnavacharyas would like to interpret in different ways, considering the purport of the entire verse. Otherwise, if you take Mayavad interpretation, then the whole verse goes off, then what other things we were explaining, what's the matter of that, isn't it? But now the question, very important question comes, why Sukdev Goswami is confusing us? That's the whole question. Why doesn't he straight, why is saying Eka Bhavena? He could have just cleared it off. He could not have used this terminology. He could have told just Bhavena. But after speaking all these things, it seems he's trying to confuse us, isn't it? By saying Eka Bhavena, my God, again, from where this Mayavad is coming. So then you have to interpret. Why is he doing like that? But the whole point there is, Sukdev Goswami is forced to use this terminology, because if you don't say Eka Bhavena, if you just say Bhavena, then it's sort of incomplete. Because if you just say Bhavena, then there is a sense of separation between God and the devotee. But Eka Bhavena means Mahabhav, where you become one with Lord. So Eka Bhavena means love. It's not just an ordinary bhav, it is love, where you become one with God in your desires, just like gopis and Krishna. So the relationship between gopis and Krishna cannot be defined just by using the word bhavena. That's very incomplete, very non-satisfying, and not really justified to be used in Bhagavatam, which is Paramahamsa Shastra. So in that sense, they're forced to use this word Eka Bhavena, but then that brings confusion also. That's the whole point. But then Sukdev would tell us, okay, fine, I'm not confusing you. That's the nearest possible I can actually literally define spiritual word, what's happening there, by using Eka Bhavena. That's the limitation of language. But well, I'm not confusing you because I have also previously told in the verse how God is unique, how we are different from God. So automatically the conclusion is that this Eka Bhavena is not becoming one with God. Otherwise, so I'm using this very word in this very verse. Otherwise, if it would have used in anywhere else, then it would have brought confusion. But he's saying, I'm not confusing you, but this is what I have to use, because this is the experience of spirituality. In spirituality, you actually lose yourself. That's the whole idea. Now, at our platform, we might not feel like that. But at the platform of Prema and Man, Sneh, Pranay, even beyond that, devotee loses himself. He loses control over his own soul. God overtakes the charge. So how do you speak about that? The nearest possible terminology is Eka Bhavena. So that's why all these things are happening in Bhagavatam, often at time and spaces. Is it clear?
Hare Krishna, yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Prabhuji, can the chanting can also cancel out the prarabdha?
Of course,
Karma also?
yeah, that's what I told in the lecture. Kubja's example. That's a difference between devotion and other process can cancel all prarabdha.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
On the okay, so we'll just send up here or what? Or
Yeah,
Prabhuji,
Prabhuji.
can you like share your
yes,
mail ID over the chat?
what's that?
Mail ID over the chat. Can you share it? I couldn't find.
Oh, mail ID is Keshav Anand, KESHAV. I don't know. I don't know how to type it, but you can. Oh, here. Okay, fine. So I'm typing it now. Keshav. Here. So send. So did you get it?
Yes, Prabhu, we got it in the chat.
But now how should I go back? My God, what's happening? What should I do?
Prabhu, just swipe it. You'll come back. I mean, like remove the chat window. At least.
Okay, fine.
You
So
are
you got
there.
it, Vivek? Vivek, you got it?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
fine. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so if there's no question, then we can
Hare
go to sleep.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Very beautiful class and very nice points. Do you have time?
Yes, I have a lot of time.
So, can you speak a little bit about Lochandas Thakur?
Oh, Lochan Das Thakur.
Yes.
See, I told you. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
Little bit. There's so much about him, and if I start speaking, I'll get lost in that. But little bit, if you say, I can do some service like that if you are requesting. What should I tell about him? Okay, fine. So I'll tell you the most important point about him, which you might not find on internet or in your search. So Lochan Das Thakur, he was one of the most important points. Is he was born in a village called as Kogram, which is very near to Srikhanda. Srikhanda is a place of Narahari Sarkar Thakur. Narahari Sarkar Thakur is actually Tung Vidya in Krishna's pastime.
Spiritual master.
Yeah, and he's the spiritual master of Lochan Das Thakur. Because Srikhanda is very near to Kogram, Narahari Sarkar Thakur is staying in Srikhanda. So obviously he went to Srikhanda and took shelter of Narahari Sarkar Thakur. And because of that, these people in Srikhanda Basi, so Srikhanda, Narahari Sarkar Thakur was the main person. Then there was Chiranjeev Sen, Mukunda, and then Raghunath. All these people were there in Srikhanda. And these people were actually great. These people were great singers, actually, great singers. And they had their own style, Srikhanda style, which is actually called as what's that called? Panchali style, yeah, Panchali style, yeah. So you see, Narottam Das Thakur had different style of singing. Srinivas Acharya, who was residing in where he was residing, Katwa, where he was. Was that place Jajigram? He was Srinivas Acharya was staying in Jajigram near Katwa, and so he had a different style of singing. And Narahari Sarkar Thakur, they had a different style of singing. So Narottam Das Thakur's style of singing is called as Garhand style, which is actually Vilambhit Lay. They're like singing. So you might have gone to Mayapur and you might have heard in the night, no, that they're like stretching. So they are saying Hari Hari, and it keeps on going Hari Hari for 5 minutes, like that. So that style is Garhand style, Narottam Das Thakur, which is very prevalent in Bangladesh and West Bengal and Northwest Bengal, like that. And Srinivas Acharya's style is very prevalent in Bengal, which was called as Hindu classical style, like that. I exactly forgot the name, a different style. But Narahari Sarkar Thakur's style was Panchali style. And in that style is very important. Lochan Das Thakur, he got trained up by Narahari Sarkar Thakur. And he wrote Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Mangal. He wrote Chaitanya Mangal in that Panchali style. And Chaitanya Mangal author is Lochan Das Thakur. That's why he's very important to us. Chaitanya Mangal is one of the books which is actually recounting pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I think initially the name was Chaitanya Bhagavat. No, actually, the name was Chaitanya Mangal. Yeah, the name was Chaitanya Mangal. So Vrindavan Das Thakur, he wrote a book, Chaitanya Mangal, but then he changed to Chaitanya Bhagavat later. But this he wrote in Chaitanya Mangal. Actually, you see, previously, anybody who used to write pastimes on Lord Chaitanya, they used to add Mangal because it's Mangal, it's auspicious. Chaitanya Mangal. So Vrindavan Das Thakur also wrote Chaitanya Mangal, and there was one other guy. Who was that name? Jagat Bandhu Basu, I don't know. He also wrote Chaitanya Mangal. There are so many Chaitanya Mangal. So Vrindavan Das Thakur's mother and other Vaishnavas just told, well, you should rename it and rename something else so that he can distinguish between Chaitanya Mangal and your book. So all the Goswamis of Vrindavan and other, they said, okay, let's rename it as Chaitanya Bhagavat. Because Vrindavan Das was that Chaitanya Leela Vyas. His incarnation of Vyasadev. So they changed to Chaitanya Bhagavat naturally. It was very good there. It was actually apt name for that. Bhagavat of Chaitanya. So that way Lochan Das Thakur is a very important personality because his 3 books are very important. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charita, Chaitanya Mangal. Chaitanya Mangal is important for singing songs because he wrote entire Chaitanya Mangal is in songs in Panchali style. It's a very nice book. Even to present day, all Bengalis sing songs from Chaitanya Mangal. Chaitanya Bhagavat doesn't have many songs. Chaitanya Bhagavat is important for recounting Navadip pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is important for recounting Jagannath Puri pastimes, especially later Gambhira pastimes. So these 3 books actually give you different flavors of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela. And that's the contribution of Lochan Das Thakur. So if you want to really know Lochan Das Thakur, read his book. Just like it is said, Prabhupada said, if you want to know me, read my book. So if you want to know Lochan Das Thakur, his sentiments, his mood, especially not just his mood, the mood of Narari Sarkar Thakur. Because the mood of Narari Sarkar Thakur is reflecting in his disciple. That's obvious. Disciple reflects the mood of his guru. So if you want to know Narari Sarkar Thakur, who was actually the most intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya, he was so intimate, Narari Sarkar Thakur, that he could, he was the only person, not only, one of the only, very few persons who could in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu call him Krishna. And otherwise nobody could call Krishna. As soon as anybody used to call Mahaprabhu Krishna, he used to close his ears. But not with Narari Sarkar Thakur. There's his special relationship with Mahaprabhu. So that mood is coming in Chaitanya Mangal, but then it also actually, it's a plus point, but it's a negative point also, because in Chaitanya Mangal, most of the Chaitanya Mangal, this Gaurang Nagaris are reading, because Chaitanya Mangal has that flavor that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, and so in the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's enjoying gopis. It's quite a funny thing because he's Krishna, so internally he's enjoying gopis. So that's called as Gaurang Nagari. So that is an upper sampradaya, Gaurang Nagari. They say, just like Krishna used to enjoy with gopis, Lord Chaitanya externally he's Krishna, but in the mood of Radha. But then internally as Krishna, he's enjoying Radha. But we know that's complete nonsense. He's not doing that. He's acting as a devotee. He's not acting as a god. But according to Gaurang Nagaris, he's acting as a devotee outside, but inside he's acting as a god. That's the problem there. And that is upper sampradaya. So that is why our Gaudiya Vaishnavas didn't actually read Chaitanya Mangal much. So especially Vrindavan Goswamis, they focused on Bhagavata and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because as soon as you start reading Chaitanya, so Hare Krishna, somebody has to mute. So open now. Somebody. So as soon as you start reading Chaitanya Mangal, what happens is, if you're not careful, you will end up into Gaurang Nagari Upper Sampradaya section, because that might lead you there, because that's their book. So that's why in Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, you don't find so much emphasis on Chaitanya Mangal. Bhakti Santa emphasized on Chaitanya Bhagavat and Chaitanya Charitamrita. But then where is Chaitanya Mangal if it is written by Lochan Das Thakur? And that's the problem. See, Chaitanya Mangal, if you read with a proper philosophical background, there's no problem. But the whole idea is that at that time, Chaitanya Mangal was associated with Gaurang Nagaris. So Bhakti Siddhanta didn't really bring this book up or highlight this. Because as soon as this book comes, Gaurang Nagari comes. So he didn't really focus on that. But now we can read, no problem. Now we don't have the problem of Gaurang Nagari because most of you will not even know what is Gaurang Nagari. So it doesn't matter for all of you. So you can read, and if you read in Bengali, that's very nice because in English you'll miss the point. Why miss the point? Because it's all in poems. So poems is in Bengali, and that's very nice to sing. So like that. This is about a brief something about Lochan Das Thakur, and yeah, a little bit, as you said. That's all. Lochan bole sahi papi alo aur gelo, that we sing. That's Lochan Das Thakur. Anyway, Hare Krishna. So I'll just end up here.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Nice to know about Lochan Das Thakur.
Okay. Okay. Jai. So we'll end up here.
Yeah, it's his it's his appearance day, na Prabhuji. So we need to speak something. So that's what I was requesting.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shamagauri Mataji. You always make sure that we hear about all the acharyas on the appearance and disappearance days. Thank you so much. Thank you, Keshwananda Prabhu, for covering it. So nice of you. Thank you so much. Actually, it's already 8 o'clock, and if we can end the call here, I would.
Hare Krishna.
Keşvanand Prabhuji ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.